Welcome to The Brain Dump, where we study the psychology of success. Join us as we probe the habits, rituals, and routines of top-performing artists, entrepreneurs, authors, athletes, and more to uncover the timeless principles we can all use to take our lives to the next level. Are you ready to plunge the grunge that's been gunking up your mind's eye? Great, then let's get to it.
Oh God, guys, welcome back to The Brain Dump. Anthony has no idea what's coming out of him because, Anthony is very, very high intellect, very knowledgeable, very pragmatic about his business.
Say other nice things about me.
Very pragmatic about his business, very thoughtful. But one of these things that I'm on right now on Construct Your Life and kind of harping on, and even I need to remind this of myself, is as exciting as all the businesses are and the investing and everything I'm doing, I have a theme for this year. So I have a theme word every year, and last year was expansion, and this year's theme word is experiences. And part of those experiences is I want to make sure that no matter how busy I am with businesses, that I'm having fun, that I'm experiencing life. And I think this is something that's not talked about enough because we're all trying to get to the next level, the next unit count, the next everything. And everybody asks me all the time when I say that, experiences, what do you mean? Like experiences in like travel? I'm like, no, like experiences like everything. Like coming out to Minnesota and hanging out with Anthony and talking shop and bullshit. Like that's an experience for me. Playing golf with some coaching clients, that's an experience for me. And I am very cognizant that the moment that I'm too caught up into work and I'm not doing the things that I love, which is travel and meeting people in person and hanging out and seeing different places, I am not creative. I'm not happy and I'm grumpy as fuck. And so this is a big thing for me this year. And I'm just curious your thoughts on it because I know you spend a lot of times in your office and you spend a lot of time in that room you're in right there. And I would just love to hear your kind of experience about it. Your thoughts about experiences.
I think it's really interesting. Your two words in the last 2 years: expansion and experience. I think I can see last year definitely being an expanding year for you, and I can see experiences also already being tied into a lot of what you do. Mm-hmm. It's hard. This one's hard for me, experiences, because the way that I think about my life is there was a period where all I did for like a decade was experience. Like that's really what rock climbing was for me, was traveling constantly to the most beautiful places in the world. Like my life was all about living in the moment and experiencing everything to the deepest nth degree. But there came a point in my life where I was like, I need to start having impact beyond just that momentary experience, because the experience for me, how I was living it, and this isn't like what experience necessarily has to mean, because you can have an experience of making impact, right? But for me, it was like this hedonistic retreat from reality or from responsibility or from society's expectations. And that was great. But the place where I'm at now is more about impact. If I was to have a word for this year, it would be impact. And that's, this is different phases, different seasons of life. And we hear all the time, like work-life balance. And like, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life control. I think that's really what we want to have. Mm-hmm. But at its core, like you might look at my life and say like, okay, that period of your life was like way too much experience. And now you might look at it and say, okay, now Anthony works way too much. You're like, he needs to find that middle point. And I would say, no, I don't. It's just different seasons, right? Like there's a season for experience. There's a season for work.
Yeah. Mark was like, I don't want to go anywhere. He's like, I traveled with Cirque du Soleil for 14 years. He goes, I'm good. He goes, I love my house. I love to run outside. And he's like, I'm good. And here's the thing. I think one of the reasons this year, and I've never said this, like you actually made me just think of something. Like seriously, I've never said this. I think that I know that my time Now, don't get me wrong, I'm always going to travel, but I think that settle down time is coming. I can hear it.
Yeah.
I turned 40 in December. I can hear me building the house and having my land. And I think I'm ready to get that kind of last gasp in, last freedom touch, Here's
something that maybe some people will resonate with, and they will have an experience that is similar. I remember when I was rock climbing, and it was all I did and all I could think about. And like, guys, like, I haven't climbed a rock in over 2 years. So like, I'm in full retirement now, but to give you context of like how deep this passion still goes for me, I would, every now and then a video will come across my Instagram or my Facebook stream. And literally as I'm watching it of somebody climbing a rock, my hands will start sweating incredibly profusely. Like it's crazy. And that's because like I'm living in that moment. It's a really crazy physiological thing. But when I don't really think about climbing anymore. I don't miss it. When I'm seeing it, I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I don't want to go out and do it. And when I was climbing and living in that lifestyle, I remember there being people who I was living that lifestyle with, and they were fully into it. They were all in, like Peter Pan, like this was their life, just climbing. And that's all we ever talked about, all we ever wanted to do. And I remember some people starting to outgrow it and starting to like pursue other things in life. They'd have kids, or they would get a job, or they would just take up a new activity. And I remember thinking, how sad, like, how can they turn their back on this thing that like once was their life and now it has no role anymore? And it used to cause me a lot of like existential angst, like as I would watch some of my closest friends kind of drift away from this thing that was their identity. And it scared me, because I was like, what's this mean for me? Like, am I ever going to outgrow this thing? I don't want to outgrow it. It's my passion. Well, now I'm on the other side of it. I've drifted away and I don't think about it anymore. I don't miss it, but it's like this, there's seasons to this thing. Mm-hmm. Like you could not have told me 10 years ago, like, hey, there's going to come a day where like all you want to do is sit in your office and work. Like it would not have made sense to me. Right. But I don't judge myself now and say like, oh, you're doing it wrong, or like you've somehow lost your innocence or something, but it's just different seasons and our identities shift with it.
One of the hacks I do that I share with some clients that's super important to me is, so when I'm traveling or when we're somewhere that's really beautiful, like I'll just use the Grand Canyon for reference point. You know what I say to myself in that moment? I say, remember this. I said, because there's going to come a time when you're working or you're doing something that you don't want to be doing. And in that moment, I think about those times, and then I work that much harder because I have an anchor point to why I'm putting in this much work, to why I'm on the Zoom call, to why I'm giving you this content on this podcast, to get back to that moment. And the seasons of life, that's what I actually just decided to name this episode, is I think one of the most important topics, because if you live your life that way instead of identity stricken, which I think that's where a lot of people, you see this all the time. Even my coach that coaches me, he was one of the best Muay Thai fighters ever and broke his leg and then was in a deep depression for 2 years because he couldn't fight. Mm-hmm. Right. So understand that there are times and places, right? Even football players happen this all the time, business people, And so I try to make very clear to people, make sure that you understand that there's shifting seasons, but make sure you understand that your identity should be wrapped up in the values of who you are, not what you do, where you are, or what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, then you can operate in any sector, any environment, and then you just become a part of the seasons. And instead of being so beholden to that situation.
I would say as well, like to take account of your expectations. And in terms of like, sometimes it can be very easy if you're like really passionate about traveling, or maybe you're really passionate about working, where you can start to like feel bad because you're like, well, I should also be finding balance. I should also find time for this other thing. I should also be doing that thing. And like, you have this expectation that you should somehow be more balanced, and you recognize that you're living like too far off onto one spectrum. But I would say like it's that expectation that's going to cause the discontent. And it's okay to like be entirely consumed, and it's okay to be out of balance. Like I know I talk a lot about like the Buddhist middle way and like the Stoic philosophy, but in the grand scheme, like life for me is about chasing one passion after another and like losing myself to that passion. And I can't turn that off. I don't want to like mellow it out and try and find a way where it's like a more balanced approach to each thing, because then I wouldn't be me. Like what makes me great at being me is I dive in with 100% hyper focus pursuit of that thing, and my life gets really out of balance because that's my new life.
100%. But I also think that you've done a really good job of cultivating things in your life that are at your highest regard for who you want to be. And because of that, you're not hanging out in that low vibration or things that kind of feel your passion. I think that allows you an easier platform to dive all in, because you know it's something that you truly care about.
Yeah. It's the values, right? At the end of the day, that's like how you put it earlier was like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's matter like at the core of like why and how you're doing it. And that's a value thing. So
100%. It's interesting, right? I have a new saying because my fucking business partners won't stop having kids. So I just found out that one of my business partners having twins. My other one had another one. So we have a new one. So you know my saying is nobody cares, work harder, right? You know that's my jam, right? Yep. Yeah, we came up with a new one. Nobody cares, we have mouths to feed. That's the new one. So like that's my rally cry. It's like knowing that I can create a company or a vehicle to allow their family the freedom to be supported and to be present fathers and moms and daughters and all that stuff. That to me is everything. Yeah. Nothing gets in the way of that. And that I can show up for that every damn day.
There's a famous author. I cannot remember off the top of my head who he was. But he was a really prolific writer and was always putting out books and stories. And in an interview, they asked him, like, how do you put out so much? Like, how do you do this? Like, you just must be like the most creative and have like this magical muse, right? Like, and he goes, I don't have a muse. I have a mortgage.
I love it. Simple.
It's like, it's so true. It's so true.
It's the truth.
You know, like,
yeah. And it's interesting. And I don't mean, look, I'm not discouraging anybody that does this. And maybe call me a little, I'm definitely an empath, but call me like a super empath. I can read somebody's goals and tell you that those goals are not for them. I can feel the emptiness in those goals because they're generic. They're not detailed. And there's no creativity in them whatsoever. There's no way that you can tell me that that's your goal. And I'll just throw them out. Nope. We're going to rewrite those. And until you really drill down to what the mission is, and it has to be greater than money, what the mission is and why you're here and what you're doing. I have a business partner, true story, dude. He started volunteering 6 hours a day on Friday. It's changed his entire life.
That's cool.
And he goes, I'll do this for the rest of my life. And he said, I don't need any money for this. I don't need any accolades. I just love this. And he's not making money from it. Financially, it's probably, not the best use of his 6 hours of time, but for him, it's everything. And he's a better entrepreneur because of that time he's spending with those people. So, everything doesn't have to have a cost associated with it. It could be filling up your bucket and somewhere else. So
I believe it.
Well, guys, send this episode to your friends, share it with somebody who gets some value, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at The Brain Dump. Now, before you go, it's important to solidify what you've learned here today by taking action. If all you do is listen, then you're only going to retain a small amount of the information you consumed here today. So take a quick moment to really lock in any key insights, tidbits, or pieces of wisdom that you want to carry with you into the future. You can do this by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review with your top 3 takeaways from this episode. If you've already left a review, first, thank you so much. Second, it's time to start a brain dump journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a slip of paper will do where you can record a couple quick thoughts from each episode. Science shows this is one of the best ways to ensure long-term retention of new information. And finally, if you've got a brother, a sister, a coworker, or a best friend that you think would benefit from this episode, do them and us a favor and share with them this episode. Your support, as always, means the world to us.